It's time to kick off for real. Welcome to the opening weekend of NASCAR in 2025. It is the Daytona 500 and it's Speed Week. Today we have practice and qualifying ahead of the duels tomorrow. And we're all set for what's going to be a very exciting day. Let's cross over to Fox Sports.
Muggsy Jeans move with you.
And we're a few minutes away from that green light going on. As you can see, the drivers now starting to head out onto the circuit as well. And just prepping as they will venture down onto the track. You'll see all the timings flash up throughout the session as well. We'll bring you up-to-date information throughout. So this is how it's going to work. We have a 1 hour practice session now ahead of qualification later on. It's going to take around about 2 hours to complete. Then we'll have coverage of MotoGP's final test day. And then the following, we will have all the action from the duels of Daytona. It's going to be a very, very exciting test. We hope you all really are going to join us and hopefully enjoy everything as well, because it is sheer brilliance, absolute fantastic and absolutely crazy what we could witness. The green light is about to go on, and hopefully, like the new NASCAR logo for 2025 at the top, we've managed to get the font, so we've made some adjustments and made it a little bit easier. All the cars will head out onto the circuit. They're just coming now into pit lane. Let's check in though, first of all, with Not Those on Fox. We'll hear from them shortly. For now though, let's check in with those who are going to be on NASCAR Radio.
A number of the cars already make their way out onto the grid. We're getting ready to practice here for 50 minutes.
We are indeed. Joey Logano, Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, William Byron, among others, have already made their way to the exit of the pit lane and have turned their cars off, simply awaiting NASCAR to put the green flag in the air to begin the practice session. Mike mentioned Chris Wilner also down in the garage area. Chris, it has been a flurry of activity down there all morning long.
It really has, Alex. It started when the garage opened, as you guys mentioned, about 6 a.m.
Well, Mike, Kevin Harvick mentioned it's so rare to have a practice session at a super speedway. It's only 50 minutes. I think we're going to see mainly single car runs. You maybe won't necessarily be able to evaluate your speed because there'll be other cars on the racetrack, but get those travels, make sure nothing's leaking. We may see a small organized draft. They're just trying to get 6 or 7 cars together. We'll just have to see. Let's go down to the garage area to a guy that was always in the hunt when it came to racing at Daytona, Regan Smith.
Larry Mack, nothing like Daytona, and nothing like having a practice before qualifying at Daytona. Opportunity for these drivers to sit in the cars, go through the gears, feel what's going to happen when they go to qualify later on this evening. A number of agendas for the garage, many of which you mentioned, single car runs, but there are a lot of teams with drivers in new places, new organizations. They want to have an opportunity also to let their drivers hit pit road, because this is the only practice and chance that they'll have to do that before we get into the duels on Thursday night. Hit pit road, feel how the brakes feel, how they're going to hit their pit stall, do a systems check all this stuff out. A lot to pay attention to in this practice session, Mike.
Thanks, Regan. As you alluded to, of the 36 chartered teams, 15 of those drivers are working with new crew chiefs this season. So here we go, right at it, single car runs. And here is your champion, Joey Logano.
Yeah, and a lot of the things that you want to run through today is you don't want the car to hit the rub blocks, so you want to get your ride heights right, because it's super important to get that car as low to the ground as possible. You see Joey's head bouncing up and down.
Looks pretty rigid.
Yeah, well, it's got to be rigid to keep that platform of the car right so that it'll run as fast as it'll go. And I think right now, you know, Joey, he always felt a little bit uncomfortable that first time around the track. At least I did.
William Byron, the defending Daytona 500 champ, made it into the championship 4 last year, raced for the title at Phoenix.
So to explain that a little bit more in depth, Kevin, of why it's rigid like that, they tie it down with the shocks to hold it in position so it doesn't bounce around and keep that everything underneath the car right where they want it, right next to the surface.
Yeah, and the ride height is the most important thing that you can do, and the easiest way to control that ride height is with the shocks and tying it down. So it's a super fine balance between ride and handling here with this this car that we've now run for 3 years, the Gen 7 car, and you want that car to be as fast as it'll go in the race trim as well. But tonight it's all about qualifying, so they'll be a little more aggressive tonight.
Yeah, don't worry about handling. Make sure that thing's fast.
Kyle Busch for Richard Childress Racing. Their cars always have speed here.
And this, Mike, you said it earlier, this will be a little bit of an interesting session just because there are some guys that just want to see what their single car speed is. And when you see Kyle come out of the pits right there behind.
This is going great.
Yeah, I was just going to say he's probably frustrated. I don't know the communication between, see the smoke out of that 6 car right there.
Dragging out in front of him. Not necessarily what you want to see when you're trying to make a clean lap, right?
Yeah, and a lot of these guys are only going to run once, probably.
Car's still smoking.
So when somebody pulls out in front of you like that, it's pretty frustrating from the spotter standpoint. I guarantee there's a discussion happening on the roof with the spotter of the 6 and 8 car.
Watching Christopher Bell, and look at that window net. We see, oh boy.
Yeah, this is because last season more of that smoke we were seeing. I think it's
Shut off. Everything on the engine looks
engine
fine.
smoke.
The dash. Smoking, I can't tell where from.
Yeah, that smoke's coming out of the right front. And Brad's really happy that we had this practice.
That took the words out of my mouth.
He's super happy that we were on the racetrack.
That's why you go out and take laps.
Yeah, make no mistake. The teams asked for this practice. You know, qualifying for the Daytona 500 is the most important time trial session of the entire year. And to do that after just unloading off the truck and going through inspection wasn't optimal. So here, teams have the opportunities to check things like this out.
And you see Bell behind somebody right there, and that's immediately going to make his car run faster. But these cars you're not going to get the optimal laps. But the one thing I notice about Bell's car, Clint, is it seems to ride a little bit smoother than some of the other ones we've shown, like Logano.
And every year that's the case with some of these cars when we come down here. In years past, those Toyotas haven't had the sheer speed. Maybe some of that's with that ride height.
Austin Cindric, fastest lap so far, 181.8 miles per hour. Now Kyle Larson to the top, 182.5. And Kyle Busch to the top. Again, he had cars around him, so we're not putting a lot of attention on the scoring pylon because not all of these are single car runs, as we pointed out. There are other cars on track, and that will affect them. There are a couple of the Joe Gibbs Toyotas. We mentioned Christopher Bell, and of course Chase Briscoe, new to the 19. Larry, what about these lap times we're seeing?
Just what I anticipated, Mike. When you're out there, if you can see another car, you're getting help from it. These cars poke such a big hole in the air that it's going to pull you along and make you run faster. But I will say this, Joey Logano right now, I know he's all the way down in 9th fastest, the first car to hit the track. His first lap was a 49.70, and it was a clean lap. He sat on the pole last year at a 49.46, and that was at nighttime, so the speed's in that 22 car as far as single car speed.
Thanks, Larry. Kyle Larson, Kyle Busch, Chase Briscoe, Christopher Bell, and Austin Cindric are now the Fast Five in practice.
After Chase left Stewart-Haas Racing at the end of last year, when Stewart-Haas Racing basically ceased to operate, and everyone on that team and organization went to parts elsewhere in the NASCAR Cup Series garage.
Let's go back to the garage area for more on Chris Wilner.
And guys, you saw a lot of the cars have already made at least one attempt out on the racetrack. That is the exception, though, for Chase Elliott. He is still out of the race car, actually currently now starting to put the earbuds in and climb behind the wheel of his Napper Chevrolet. They have the cars still up on stands as of just about 2 minutes ago because they were one of the last cars through tech, and they were unable to make the adjustments they wanted to based off of that technical inspection before practice in time to roll the car out. So Chase Elliott missing the opening few minutes. As I say that now, the car begins to come to life, and Chase gets strapped aboard that Chevrolet. So a little bit of lost time here, but again, their plan, just like most of the other Chevrolet teams, is to go out and get some single lap runs in here in this first practice session.
Chase will make his way out to the pit lane. 19 cars have been pulling onto the racetrack already, the fastest of which, Kyle Busch, at a time of 49.026 seconds. From Daytona International Speedway, this is the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
You crave power, but your ride is holding you back. Feeling the burn of mediocrity instead of the thrill of domination. E3's cutting-edge tech, the same spark that fuels NASCAR champions, also delivers maximum fuel efficiency, so you spend less time at the pump and more time on the track. This is championship performance. This is E3 Spark Plugs. Don't just dream of speed. Make it your reality. Power, speed, endurance. E3. What are you running?
Relive the thrills of over 50 years of NASCAR racing with the Motor Racing Network's Classic Race.
36th Annual Southern 500. They come down to the start-finish line. Bill Elliott and David Pearson get down.
We dig into the MRN audio vault for unforgettable races and moments.
Dale Jarrett's got the lead. Earnhardt's not going to get him. Dale Jarrett is going to win the Daytona 500.
Available on MRN.com and podcast platforms.
Alan Kowicki out of turn number.
The first and only practice session for pre-qualifying. That is before time trials tonight and the duels tomorrow. Now that is Helio Castroneves, four-time Indy 500 winner, who was invited by Team Trackhouse to come and run the Daytona 500. And they are taking, here is a brief summary, very brief summary of his great accomplishments. And a more enthusiastic, happier race car driver I don't think you'll find anywhere.
A lot of fun.
Multidiscipline. I mean, that's the kind of thing we used to see back in the A.J. Foyt, Mario Andretti days, where a driver would tackle a whole lot of different disciplines. This is his first try at the Daytona 500. And he has in his back pocket...
Sure like that lid.
Yeah.
Sorry.
A new and somewhat controversial provisional starting spot that we'll talk about later. Now here is Jimmy Johnson, seven-time NASCAR champ, who, like Castroneves, is one of the 9 open cars that are not guaranteed a spot in the Daytona 500.
That can't be Shaq on the hood of that thing. It ain't big enough.
Here are the open teams. 2 will lock in tonight in time trials, pole position qualifying. And then 1 will transfer from each of the dual races. And as we mentioned, Castroneves has this new for 2025 provisional position available to a driver from outside NASCAR coming in with stellar credentials, whereby the team applied for that provisional spot more than 90 days in advance of the event. The details of that were contained in the new charter agreement, and Team Trackhouse took advantage. We'll see how it plays out. Shane Van Gisbergen also brings a great resume to Daytona, and he's going to be in that car full time for 2025 as a rookie candidate.
I hope we get to see Shane really be successful in his outing here at the Daytona 500, just because of the fact that I also like that WeatherTech commercial during the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
that's really what I was getting
Excellent.
at.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well done.
Unfortunately, I didn't get to see that. I was at the game, Kevin, but
yeah, well, you were at, that wasn't a game.
Regan, what do you have for
save
Give me
us,
something.
please.
Fill me out.
Hey, as a Broncos fan, I thought that was a fantastic game, Clint. Brad Keselowski, you guys mentioned it, the smoke earlier. When they first hit the racetrack, the car is in the garage. Brad out of the car. I just checked with Brad. He said it is actually a steering issue with the race car, so they're going to take an opportunity to get that fixed up. A good break. We normally wouldn't have this practice before we qualify, so really a good break for the 6 cars, as you guys mentioned.
Absolutely. So here's what we saw. And as he came toward pit road, you see a lot of that's coming from the right front of the car.
Well, we talk about the racks and different things up front with these Gen 7 cars, and when he talks of the steering issue, it's not. I mean, we see them constantly throughout the year. We talked about them at Bowman Gray as well, just with the steering being heavy or whatever the case is with that particular one. There's definitely been scattered issues here and there with these cars with the steering throughout the years.
So that 01, put a decimal point in front of that 01 because that represents a penny, and Corey LaJoie's podcast is Stacking Pennies, and he's one of the open cars trying to time or race his way into the 500.
This open situation with all the different cars, there we see some more smoke.
AJ Allmendinger smoking front right.
Doesn't seem to be well. Yeah, he's going to ignore. Maybe the crew alerted him.
Yeah, and you see that mirror moving back and forth up there. It tells me there's a ton of vibration in that car. When he was up to full speed, you see the mirror.
Mm-hmm. You don't want that.
No.
Definitely don't want that.
At these really smooth racetracks, and when you have the car tied down, any vibration is just magnified inside these cars. And from a driver's standpoint, there are certain vibrations that you can deal with. But when it starts shaking that bad, you definitely don't want to have to deal with that. You can't deal with that.
Well, it's so important to what's behind you. It paints the picture for you, right? I mean, obviously you have the camera in that mirror, but back in the day, that was something that was crucial for me. I had to make sure that thing, we put padding behind it, all sorts of stuff, make sure that mirror didn't vibrate.
Man, Ross looks serious right there. He is. He's intense. He's got one hand on the wheel.
One hand.
Yeah.
What'd your dad always tell you? Both hands on the wheel. Well, it's a little different here, right?
They would always tell me to put my hand out the window like that, and I'd get out there and I'm like, I'm not putting my hand on the window. I don't know that I can make myself drive with two hands. I said I'll be smoother with.
Look how much that car's bouncing.
How much he's bouncing.
That's what I mean.
Moves around a lot in that seat.
They have a new commercial they debuted last week, and we're going to see it in the Daytona 500 with the Bush guy out in the woods and Ross glamping or camping or something. It's fun.
I'll go ahead and pit here if you can hear us.
Always do a great job of their campaigns, Kevin, all years over the years, and certainly with Ross Chastain not slowing down a bit.
Kyle Busch has the fastest unaided lap, 49.26 seconds. That's 182.5 miles per hour.
What do you race their way in? So that car comes around and what would simulate what is a green flag lap to begin their mock qualifying effort. They're by themselves on the racetrack, but it is a big day for that race team and for that entire organization. By the way, another driver making their Daytona 500 debut this weekend, Elio Castro-Neves, has gotten his official times in for the first time. He is 31st on the board right now out of 33 drivers that have taken a lap here at Daytona. It's being led at the moment by Noah Gragson. From Daytona International Speedway, this is the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
The Motor Racing Network's podcast offerings are a must for any NASCAR fan. MRN Classic Races feature over 50 years of NASCAR racing. Go behind the MRN microphones with 50 years the voice of NASCAR. Also check out Jeff Gordon, A Colorful Career, The Tough Trucks of NASCAR, Junior's Journey, The Many Hats of Jack Roush, Richard Petty, Road to Royalty, and the 1993 season. Listen to these and more on the show's page on MRN.com or on your favorite podcast platform.
Good morning, guys. I just want to warn you, traffic is tough out there.
We are here for you to tell you how to keep safe.
Everybody who is listening needs to take cover as soon as they can.
To provide the music, talk, and sports you love. And to deliver the news that matters to you. We are the voices you can trust. We are live and local. We are America's broadcasters. Text radio to 52886 and tell Congress you depend on your local radio stations.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to STOP.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Back here at the World Center of Racing, practice underway for pole qualifying, which will be later on tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern. You can hear it right here on the Motor Racing Network. Noah Gragson, I mentioned a moment ago, is the fastest so far in this practice session, but it does come with an asterisk. He did draft just a bit, so he was drafting out there to put down that big lap. Practice and pole qualifying for the Great American Race, the Daytona 500, is brought to
focusing on qualifying today, obviously, so it gives guys a chance to work on the car and gives them a little extra time. So car feels good, everything's normal. You're out there just making a lap by yourself, so there's really not much to reference, but feel good. The car looks great. I'm just so excited for another season. I'm really pumped to be down here in Daytona and feel refreshed and feel just ready to go. So last year was obviously great to us, and hopefully just start this week off better than we did last year with a backup car. So just looking forward to the duel and trying to have a solid run there, keep everything together, and keep our primary piece together for Sunday.
Nice of Rudy not to overwork you in this first session of the year too, right?
I didn't even break a sweat, so I felt bad turning the air conditioning on in there.
Thanks, William.
William ran a total of 2 laps.
I don't know, Mike. I think that I would be okay with maybe tearing the primary car up. Worked out fine for him last year.
Sure, yes, it sure did. Now, more than a coincidence, we think, because this is Ryan Preece exhibiting the same kind of smoke from the same place as his boss, Brad Keselowski, earlier.
I love it. I don't love that they're having problems, but I love the fact that they're able to practice, get these things worked out. We've seen so many issues before in the last few years, and why this practice is so important, because we don't want to see these guys not be able to qualify tonight, and letting them get their issues fixed before qualifying.
Well,
they're lucky.
Here's another one. Excuse me. Eric Jones had a mechanical issue trying to leave the garage, said he could not engage the clutch on his car.
And you see him explaining the throw of the clutch right there.
So, Larry, that leaves one RFK car. We've talked about Preece and Keselowski. What about Chris Buescher?
And that's the good thing, Mike. They did go out there, and Chris was able to run 3 laps in that 17 car, so it appears there's no problem. So, yeah, I'm always under the assumption when it comes to race car, once is an instant, 2 is a trend or a pattern. But I go back to the 24 car and Rudy Fugle. What a lot of the crew chiefs told me this morning, said we may only run 1 or 2 laps, because you saw how bad Ross Chastain was bouncing up and down. That race car's doing the same thing. They've got these cars so maxed out, they were concerned going out there and bouncing around and having to go through inspection after this practice for qualifying, that it would get everything off that they had kind of tried to build into the car.
That's hard to imagine these days. Can't outrun technology, baby.
No, and you'll see a lot of these guys go through inspection with umbrellas on their car. So you want that car is set up from the shop to be max speed and everything to the thousandths of an inch to be able to maximize every area on that race car to make the most speed. And so when you're out there bouncing around and having things happen, it moves stuff around.
And to Larry's point, of the 38 cars that have been on track in this practice, 14 of them took only 1 lap. So here is Martin Truex, who in my head I'm still having a hard time getting him out of the 19 car, which looks the same, but now has Chase Briscoe aboard. Truex going to run, I don't know how many races this year. He's declared for the Daytona 500 in this number 56 car, a number he used at Michael Waltrip Racing, and a number that his dad used throughout his career. So a lot of Truex family history with that car number. And there is today's Toyota driver profile on Martin Truex, trying to make his 21st Daytona 500 start. Now that's an open car, one of the 9 cars here that are not guaranteed in. And this takes me back to when we used to get 60 or so cars for the Daytona 500, and nobody was locked into the field except the prior year's champion. And everybody was worried about qualifying time trials and about Thursday and about the duels and trying to get in the show for Sunday. So we have quite a number of drivers in that situation right now.
You saw that board right there. Don't forget old Cole Pern, his crew chief on that car right there. That could be dangerous for this competition. He is known to, if anybody's going to get away with something, that guy right there can get it done. Pretty sharp.
Daniel Suarez finishing up his run, and there's Chris Buescher's car in the garage.
got an answer. I don't know if I got to the bottom of it. Chris Gabehart, and you guys know Chris, and anyone that's followed along Motor Racing Network, Chris is overseeing all the competition over at Joe Gibbs Racing, former crew chief for Denny Hamlin. He was walking to one of the pit boxes, and I grabbed him and I said, what is the situation with the cars teaming up and hooking up with other cars? And he said, it's all single car focused, but there are some nuances in it, and he smiled. So I got an answer. Chris is way smarter than me, and nuance, I have no idea what he's talking about. There definitely is a plan on what they're doing, but they're still working on making sure these cars are fast on one lap. So there you go, Mike. Alex, nuance. I have no idea, but there's some kind of a plan there that Chris Gabehart is working on with the Joe Gibbs cars, and I think nuance is, I'm not telling you anything other than nuance.
It's calculated, and you can absolutely put your bottom dollar on that. They don't do things just by accident here in the NASCAR Cup Series. It is truly calculated, and they have a method to their madness. Noah Gragson, Eric Jones, Kyle Busch, they are the Fast Three here in practice so far. From Daytona International Speedway, this is the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Relive the thrills of over 50 years of NASCAR racing with the Motor Racing Network's classic race.
36th Annual Southern 500. They come down to the start-finish line. Bill Elliott and David Pearson get down.
We dig into the MRN audio vault for unforgettable races and moments.
Dale Jarrett's got the lead. Earnhardt's not going to get him. Dale Jarrett is going to win the Daytona 500.
Available on MRN.com and podcast platforms.
Alan Kowicki out of turn number 4, the new Winston Cup champion. He does it across the line.
MRN Classic Races.
We are under the green flag. Listen up, NASCAR fans. Now's the time to turn your love of racing into big-time prizes. Because NASCAR Fantasy Live is your fast lane to bragging rights.
Furious racing here.
Pick 5 drivers each week of the season. Then complete additional challenges to stack points. All for your shot at the grand prize.
So let's get this party started.
For official rules and to learn more, visit NASCAR.com/fantasy and sign up today.
It's going to be May 31st.
Okay.
In my hometown of Bakersfield, California, at Kevin Harvick's Kern Raceway.
Love it.
How cool is it to be able to have the first time that we're going to race each other? It's going to be in my hometown, in front of the fans that supported me for so long. He's going to run his first race there in March, but the first of what looks to be about 8 races this year will happen at Kern in the Pro Late Model on the Cars Tour West, May 31st.
This is like, yeah, that's like watching LeBron and Bronny play on the same court together. You're watching Kevin and Keelan.
Gonna have to think on that one for a minute, but you can join Kevin and his crew every Tuesday and Thursday for NASCAR's #1 on the chart podcast. Expert opinions, big names in sports and entertainment. Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour presented by Echo Park Automotive. You and Keelan, Ronnie and LeBron.
I heard 8 races, Kevin. That's
all right.
Called a schedule.
Well, that's 8 races that we're going to race against each other. I'm going to race about 15. What? And he's going to run. He'll run.
Forget you're in retirement?
Yeah, but that's fun, Clint.
Oh.
Yeah. You want to come race with us?
Not let that boy beat you.
Oh, it's going to happen at some point, I would say.
I'm banking on it.
That'll be fun, though. I can't wait. We're going to go out May 31st to Kern Raceway there in Bakersfield, California, and be able to race against Keelan. That's not really anything that I had on my playlist there a couple of years ago.
I'll bet he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Carson Hocevar, we saw just finishing up a run here is Riley Herbst, the second rookie candidate for 2025, along with Shane Van Gisbergen. And Larry Mack, tell us about Hocevar and what his teammates are doing in this practice.
Yeah, I think Kevin anticipated this based on our conversation yesterday and being in the garage area this morning. There's 3 Spire Motorsports cars here. Carson Hocevar, the 77, his crew chief Luke Lambert, they're the only one of the 3 that's been out on the track, and they've definitely been out there. They've run more laps than anybody. They just completed 13 laps, but it just appears right now, with about 25 minutes to go, that the 7 car, Justin Haley, Rodney Childers, the 71 of McDowell and Travis Peterson, they've elected not to go out and practice, going back to what I talked about earlier, things about the car moving around, and just pull information from Hocevar and Luke Lambert.
Well, I know Clint will have a hard time understanding this, but it's all about the details. And you work all winter to get these cars prepared, and being able to put these cars on the racetrack maxed out from going through inspection and all the things that happened before qualifying. You don't know what's going to happen with this car bouncing around in the sun, getting hot, moving around, and then you don't want any surprises, Larry, as you go through inspection. You know this, you've experienced this. Sometimes you can get into a rabbit hole and not be able to keep up with it.
What happens when your clutch doesn't work and all the rest of the bugs that we've seen already? Well, that's going to make you look bad.
That's rolling the dice.
Gamble, right?
Rolling the dice.
I'm going to put it in the category of calculated risk. This is how we did it all last year for the super speedway races. Unload the car, go qualify, and they are taking a calculated risk that everything on that car is just the way it was for those sessions last year, and they're good to go. We'll see how it works out.
On board with Bubba Wallace here. You see those 3 lines on the steering wheel there. The white one is for when you come into the pits. You want that straight up so your wheels are turned a little bit to the right so the pit guys can get the tire out of the wheel well. And then the yellow one, when you go to the left, you want that straight up. So those yellow and white lines on the steering wheel there to put the steering wheel in the right position so that they can change the tires the most efficient.
Helps them get that wheel out of the
That's right.
22 and a half minutes left in this pre-qualifying practice session at Daytona.
In his career in the NASCAR Cup Series, he's got a golden opportunity to win races this year. I know it was talked about a little earlier in the off-season, talking a little bit about Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing. I expect them to get wins with Brad Keselowski and Chris Buescher. Ryan Preece, it's still to be determined, but it wouldn't surprise me.
We've watched them make steps year after year after year. Brad snapped that winless streak last year in Darlington. We saw Chris Buescher go to victory lane after the playoffs began, and that stung. And he's still stung about that. He won at Watkins Glen last fall. They wanted that win before that to get into the playoffs. Scott Graves, his crew chief, told me that is priority number 1. We need to win earlier and get as many cars in as possible. Jury is out on how Ryan Preece and that team will perform. However, with things on the upswing, they should be in a pretty good spot to be contending for playoff spots for all 3 of those Ford Mustangs.
100% agree on that one. Now, the theme for today, and it seems like it will be for the next few days as we get everyone up to speed here on a brand new season, the theme is change. One of the new changes at Spire Motorsports is Rodney Childers coming over to be a crew chief, this time with Justin Haley. Let's hear from Justin.
And Justin is actually standing outside the garage in street clothes. So, Justin, a little bit of a different strategy for you, Rodney, and the entire Spire Motorsports group. So, what is the plan? Obviously not out on the racetrack right now.
Yeah, I mean, you just have confidence in your guys. And obviously we haven't had practice down here before. So, yeah, I think we just run under the strategy of, leaving the shop with the car maxed out for qualifying. And as soon as you get on the track, it might buffer, the sun might change it a little bit, the body panels. So, yeah, just trying to max out what we got for qualifying and try to get a good qualifying spot.
I know this is probably something you're not used to, having practice and not being out on the racetrack, but how much trust do you have in building not only what you have with this Spire group, but you and Rodney's communication? Obviously, you had the clash a couple of weeks ago, but this is kind of your really big first shot at it.
Yeah, I mean, we unloaded great at the clash. Had some unfortunate circumstances, but, yeah, a lot of belief in the 7 team and what we're doing here at Spire Motorsports. So, yeah, I mean, me and the 71 are sitting here on the sidelines. The 77 went out there and did some stuff. So, yeah, just like I said, we have full confidence in our guys and just trying to max out what we got for qualifying.
Way around Daytona, of course, couple-time Daytona 500 champion. This is something new for you today, though, being here as an owner. I know you were here as soon as the garage opened up this morning. How exciting is this?
It's awesome. Dream of mine to be in the Cup garage as an owner, and so it's pretty special to finally have that opportunity, especially at the biggest race of the year, and a lot of preparation in the car, but it's time to get to work, get to business with with practice and everything, go out there and see what the car can do. So a little bit, I'm glad we got some practice. Certainly with a brand new car, you got bugs and things to work out and try to streamline everything, get it doing what it's supposed to do, but hopefully by the night we got the speed we need.
All right, good luck tonight, Mike. I can tell you he's been down here, head under the hood, checking everything out on this race car. These guys are totally invested on this down here.
Junior Motorsports making their first start in the Cup Series, but boy, they have had a lot of success here in the Xfinity Series. In the team formed by Dale Earnhardt Jr., his sister Kelly, and Rick Hendrick. 4 championships, 88 wins. First Cup race attempt here with this number 40 for Justin Allgaier. And if you look at this graphic, upper left, Regan. How was it to drive here for Dale Jr. and win an Xfinity race?
Well, Mike, I can tell you it was a special moment. You know, anytime that you win at Daytona, no matter what the series is, this place has just got a different feel to it. And that day was special. Dale actually won the 500 the following day after that, and I can assure you, the celebration it probably rivaled some of the Super Bowl celebrations that we've seen from some of the teams there.
Hard to find somebody who cares about this sport more than Dale Jr. You know, it's fun to see that car in the field, Junior Motorsports represented on the Cup lineup, and you know, Dale it just
seems right.
It just seems right.
And not just the sport, but his respect for the sport's history. He is truly a student of how this sport came to be and got to where it is. And there's one of the reasons why the Wood brothers,
speaking of history,
who've been in NASCAR since 1949, with their new driver now, Josh Berry, at the wheel of the number 21 that, 5 drivers have taken to victory in the Great American Race.
Yeah, and Josh Berry, another example, you know, from Junior Motorsports and their late model program, and through their Xfinity cars, and you know, there's a lot of touch points that Dale touches throughout the garage, and Josh Berry is definitely
opportunities.
Definitely
created.
one of those.
All right, let me think from memory here. Let's see: Cale Yarborough, A.J. Foyt, David Pearson, Trevor Bayne, Tiny Lund, all won the 500 for the Wood brothers. Quite a list.
47 fitting out the front.
William Byron's nose is going to start growing. He told Regan Smith he was done practicing.
That's what I want. I'm going, is this tape? No, this is live. They decided to go out and make another run.
Well, and that's usually what happens. They start looking at the data, and they start looking at all the travels and everything that goes with that, and they're like, well, maybe we need to run a little bit faster.
I also think there's real estate on the racetrack. In other words, there's not as many cars out there right now to get you a good clean lap and have a good understanding of what you have for a car.
Yeah, and you talk about real estate. That's also something that the driver works on, is just the total distance of where he runs on the racetrack and what he needs to do from a driver's standpoint.
So looking at Chris Buescher on the racetrack, his 2 teammates, Keselowski and Preece, have not completed a lap. Haley and McDowell, by design, have not run a lap, and that leaves Chandler Smith, who is driving for Carl Long. A late replacement. They had named Mike Wallace to drive that car and had a sponsor for the Carl Long car, but Mike Wallace, because he had not competed in the Gen 7 car and had not run a race in the Cup Series in more than a decade, NASCAR said, we're going to give you a path to come back to Daytona, but it will be next year before we approve you. And that's why the 66 has Chandler Smith at the wheel, and they are not going to make a run in this practice, it appears. Denny Hamlin, new colors on his car for 2025. And we'll catch up with his progress and others when we come back. 15 minutes to go.
The jackpot is guaranteed to be a minimum of $100,000. You must be over 18 and in the state of Florida at the time of purchase to play.
Given the fact that we're going to qualify here later on tonight, it's worth talking about the open cars here at Daytona. And what we mean by the open cars are the teams that came to Daytona without a charter and a guaranteed spot in the Daytona 500. And when you look at the scoreboard right now, who are the fastest open cars in practice? Well, they're being led by Martin Truex Jr. More on him and that team in just a moment with Tricon Garage. But Truex is 15th overall, but he is the fastest open car. Jimmy Johnson is the second looking quick. And then Helio Castroneves has just jumped up to the 22nd spot. So they have found some speed in that car here in practice after being 32nd earlier. Castroneves up to 22nd. He's the third fastest open car.
Right now on the racetrack, we're seeing Brad Keselowski try to get his first full-timed lap of competition. He pulls out onto the racetrack while Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, Cody Ware, and also Justin Allgaier sitting on the pit lane waiting to get their timed lap. You mentioned Martin Truex Jr. a moment ago. He's back for more. He stepped away from full-time racing at the end of 2024, and Tricon Garage, if you don't know what that organization is, that organization, that is a powerhouse in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. They're making their first Cup start as well. Martin will be making his 21st start in the 500, looking for his first win. He said, I'm not stepping away forever, but I'm stepping away from full-time, and I'll come back and drive here and drive there. And obviously he's come back to race in the Great American Race again.
If they can make the Daytona 500, that would be a big feat for not only Tricon, but for Truex as well. Let's get some more on this story with Steve Post.
Yeah, and Tricon Garage, as you guys talked about, is iconic, our very, very strong Truck Series team. And the name attached to it is David Gilliland.
And ARCA's Menard Series on track this week. And it all wraps up with the Daytona 500 this Sunday on Fox. Check your local listings or go to NASCAR.com for all the tune-in information. Regan?
Well, Mike, I'm not sure what retirement is supposed to look like, but for Martin Truex Jr., retirement is coming back to Daytona for yet another year, your 21st try to win the Daytona 500. How good does it feel to be down here this weekend?
Yeah, so far it's been fun. We've got a nice cast of characters on our car that have been around for a long time, a bunch of really good guys, and we got Cole to come back down and do it. And so, so far it's been a lot of fun, and hopefully we can, have a good night tonight and a good night tomorrow night. I think we'll have some fun on Sunday.
You mentioned Cole Pern, your former crew chief that you won a championship with. What's it been like reuniting with him and rekindling some of those memories?
Some things never change, Pick up right where you left off. So it's been fun so far. I'm glad I was able to talk him into doing it, and hopefully he's excited about it too. It seems like he is. So far it's been a lot of fun.
All right, good luck in qualifying tonight, Mike. One of these cars that has to qualify their way into the Daytona 500.
He didn't seem nervous, did he? Not a bit, but he leads the list of active drivers with Daytona 500 starts. Kyle Busch right behind him with 19. All right, here's Brad Keselowski on track. Just 4 cars have not turned a lap. Keselowski and his teammate Ryan Preece, and the 2 Spire cars that had no intention of practicing.
Well, so far so good. We don't have any smoke coming out of the right front tire anymore, so that's a plus.
Trying to get out
and you can pit out of 4 if you want here. All good there. Stay up on the track. Save a little bit of time here. Nothing coming up back to the straight away.
And Brad heads for pit road. We've seen a number of drivers practicing pit road entry and stopping in the pit box, because remember, this is the only practice before the dual races Thursday night. Larry?
Yeah, I mean, remember, most of these drivers, they've not made any type of a pit stop in 3 months back to November in Phoenix. Watch Tyler Reddick here. Not only was he practicing in his 45 car coming to pit road, the pit boxes are concrete. He was trying to practice the launch. He did it 2 or 3 times because, again, Mike, you're going to have to make at least 1 pit stop in those dual races tomorrow night. And if I go back to last year's dual races, both of them had green flag pit stops.
Yeah, and the reason that they do that is because every track has a different grip level in those pit stalls. So from a driver's standpoint, you need to know how hard you can get to pit road, how much brake you need to use, and get your speed right so you get in rhythm. And when you go in and out of those pit boxes, being able to get into the box hard without sliding through the box is different at Daytona than it is at Las Vegas. And you need to know, I used to practice it every week because you need to know that grip level. And when you leave pit box, you need to know how much wheel spin. You saw Tyler didn't have enough wheel spin, the car kept dying.
Yeah.
And you need to know how much wheel spin because you have to launch all the way up until this maximum speed that you can go in second gear so that you minimize or maximize that time out of the box to maximum speed.
Yeah, and that's the hardest thing is not only that, then if you just dump the clutch and floor it and the thing blows the tires off of it, it's slow too.
You're not going anywhere.
Yeah, so you got to really massage that clutch pedal and throttle and keep the tires rolling instead of just spinning or stall it out. Fine line.
Well, for the first time, we've got a multi-car draft on track. 4 cars here working. Are they all Toyotas?
Yeah.
The first couple of them are.
Yeah, the first couple are, and they went right to the top of the board with Bubba and Bubba Wallace and Ty Gibbs there drafting together. But I think that the big thing that this does is gets the speed up in the car, lets you get those travels right in race trim and everything, you know, that you didn't have by yourself. So the speed picks up such a great amount that you need to know what those travels are.
So Bubba Wallace gets the PR lap for this session, at least with 8 minutes to go. And here's Helio Castroneves, 4-time Indy winner, breaking down his run.
I noticed as well we're very bouncy, no bottoming. Vibration stayed the same. Different from Talladega. Talladega, the car was turning a little more, less scrub, especially in turn 3 and 4 here. 1 and 2 seems to be okay, but 3 and 4 to the wind, it seems to be pushes off. If we can fix that, that would be great.
Yeah, and that's the bouncing. I hate to tell you, but you're just going to have to live with it. That's just part of this car, and I can't even imagine coming from a different style of car and having to ride in this car that rides terrible in order to go fast, and having to get used to that in such a short amount of time. So.
And they can back some of that rebound out of it for the duels, right?
Oh, watch your mouth, Clint. Now we're going to go slower.
What you're not going to fix is the wind in that situation in turns 3 and 4, because the wind has picked up since we started. Bubba Wallace with a hand out the window as 3 Toyotas and a Ford draft at Daytona.
Let's get back in the car again. They're this speed weeks.
This race has been so close. You've done so well on these speedway races. What would it mean for you to finally able to check off the Daytona 500 on Sunday afternoon?
Well, it mean the world. I mean, it's the same with everybody else in the garage, you know. So we have been close, you know, a few times. I think we run second here twice and had a really good shot to win this race probably 3 or 4 times. It just hadn't really happened for us. So just got to stay in the fight, you know, just trying to get to the end of these things, and you never know what can happen. But I look forward to the weekend regardless. And, yeah, it'd be a privilege to have a shot at it and see if we can try to take home one of these trophies.
That'd be cool, that's for sure. And I think Ryan just laid that out perfectly. You got to stay in the fight. You got to have a shot. He's done it a number of times, and one of these times he's going to come up in victory lane and win that Harley J. Earl trophy. That's Ryan Blaney. He's out of the car, and his practice session is done here today.
And if Ryan Blaney or Joey Logano or Austin Cindric were to win the Daytona 500 on Sunday, it would continue Roger Penske's dominance in all of motorsports, Alex.
Yeah, he's won just about everything you can think of here as of late. It doesn't matter in what form of motorsports, from Rolex 24s, which they won just again, to Indianapolis 500. Steve Post talked about the story on the paint scheme that Joey Logano is running here this week, and it's undefeated for Joseph Newgarden in the Indy 500. To other forms of sports cars. Then you look at winning Roger Penske's first Daytona 500 pole. He did that with Joey Logano a year ago. Roger Penske and Team Penske right now as an entire organization are in that sweet spot. And everybody kind of has that idea. Nobody knows where it is and how to get it, because if you did, you'd be there all the time.
Yep.
But when you hit that sweet spot and everything is just working across the board, then you're going to have a ton of success. And the only thing you can do is ride that wave.
Until the wave no longer continues to exist. And right now, Team Penske obviously on a roll in all forms of motorsports. When we look at this scoring rundown from this practice, it's going to be very deceiving.
In this session, a number of cars drafting as they just went past. 3 Toyotas and a Ford. Now that Ford is that number 66, Chandler Smith. They came out very, very late in the session. They ran a single lap, put them 40th out of 42 cars that practiced, and then in the draft jumped up to 4th on the board. So That's a great stat to have going into media day later on this afternoon.
Yeah, the drivers are really excited about being able to practice their cars and get in rhythm. They're probably not as excited that they're going to have to get out of their car and go to the media day. Or at least I wouldn't have been. I don't know about you, Clint.
Kevin, now every day is media day.
Well,
now you are the media.
I'm just giving you the
I get it.
inside feeling of the driver.
You always hit it so well, Kevin.
Well, what I love is there's, of the 40-some drivers here, most of them think if things go right, they have a chance to have a top finish in the Daytona 500.
And they're right.
Love that optimism.
Stats show it.
Well, we saw it last year. The Toyotas were not very good in qualifying and drove straight to the front of their duels and raced really well.
Speaking of anyone can do it, look at this list of recent Daytona winners. Now, both the spring and summer or fall race.
I mean, it's just one of those races where all the stars have to align. Everything has to go exactly correct. But you have a lot to do with it. There's no question about it. Survival is a huge thing. You have to have a fast car, but you have to make the right moves at the right time, more importantly.
Well, survival is definitely a huge part of it. With this car, I want a fast one. I want to qualify somewhere towards the front of the pack, and I think that the circumstances of how you race and the speed in your car and being able to be on offense is still a huge plus if you have that. If you don't, and you know how it is when your car is not fast enough and you have to race on defense and try to put yourself in the right spot, it becomes a lot harder. So qualifying tonight is important.
That and the opportunities are fewer and farther, apart. When you have those fast cars, and we've both had them, the opportunities come, and you choose which ones you want.
We asked some of today's drivers, what's it going to take to win the 500 this Sunday?
The winning strategy at Daytona is miss the wrecks. That race is all about strategy all day, but then we all crash at the end.
It's going to be about being very studious about being good teammates and working together to find our way to the front, and then just not getting caught up in the mess there at the end.
Get to the end. If you're there at the end, you can have a shot to win.
Somehow I'm reminded of that Mike Tyson line. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you can get through. Let's not forget, the points start paying tomorrow night for the duels. And I know my partner here doesn't like to hear about points, but points decide a lot of things as we go through the playoffs, or making the playoffs, or making it through the playoffs. I mean, there are just so many things that matter right off the bat, starting tonight with qualifying and then straight to these duels. And you see it right here. Dual finish, dual points, one in, one out.
Yeah, regular season championship was decided.
That's right.
In part because of the points earned in the duel this Thursday night. Wow.
And we see it every year. I mean, there's something decided about it, by a small amount, a small margin of points, and you have to be able to put yourself in that mindset to be able to go right from the beginning saying, I got to maximize what I have to do. And I know the Daytona 500, you're willing to take more chances and things like that, but you got to be able to collect points.
Larry Mack?
Yeah, Mike, Kevin, Clint, since 2014, 5 times a driver missed the playoff by 7 or less points. So to your point, those points tomorrow night, even though the season has not officially started, is pretty important.
That's the one that really stands out to me, Larry, is what he just said. The last one, you can't forget, he missed the whole entire race. I mean, there was a race missing there, so there was that, Kev.
There was that too, but if he'd have scored more points in the duel, he would have not had to worry about that either.
Yeah, I know. But it's the Daytona 500, man.
Look at all the rubber that was down on those pit boxes, so drivers will get great traction. That all comes from the Rolex 24-hour race here just a couple of weeks ago, where all those pit stalls were in use for 24 hours of racing. All right, Denny Hamlin, top of the PR board for Daytona 500 pre-qualifying practice. We'll be back to wrap things up.
this thing looks beautiful. It so far so good. It's really fast, and hopefully we can get our Chevy to the front.
You've talked about junior motorsports, and you've had a taste of the Cup Series racing, but I look around, and, yeah, you say Greg Ives, he's a veteran of the Cup Series, but I see a lot of your guys here, your junior motorsports guys. What does it mean for you to see guys like Jim Pullman and guys like this working on this Cup effort as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's really what was, when we looked at this program, this is something that was very important to Dale and Kelly, is to really make this a junior motorsports team and to be integrated in this as much as we can be. It got even furthermore down that path when we kind of started looking into what that would take to do, and I know a lot of people just assume that this is a Hendrick effort or whatever, but it's really not. This is a junior motorsports effort, and these guys are all guys that work on our Xfinity Series teams week in and week out, and it's cool to see them get an opportunity. Some of these guys have been in the Cup Series before. Some of them, this is their first foray into to getting in the Cup Series garage. So there's a lot of tension just because you want to do it right, you want to see things go well, but the smiles have not been able to be wiped off of their faces since we got here. So again, really proud of the effort. Everybody that's been a hand in getting this car to the racetrack. It's been a lot of work and it's been a lot of effort, but man, it looks cool, it drives fast. There's really not much more you could ask for as a driver.
Not at all. We wish you well.
Thank you.
Justin Allgaier is going to try to lock into one of those qualifying spots either tonight or through the dual events tomorrow night here at Daytona. But he's right, a lot of smiles, and it's really neat to see a lot of these crew members that are full-blown Xfinity Series crew members getting a chance to taste the waters here in the NASCAR Cup Series.
And if he is able to lock himself in, it will be Justin's third start in the Great American Race. Red and black flags are flying. Practice is over. Some final thoughts when we return. From Daytona International Speedway, this is the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
The Motor Racing.
Yeah, great first session then as well for Denny Hamlin in the number 11 to go top. It certainly has been more entertaining, isn't it? Was it 187.48 mile an hour he's got to at the moment as well. Lap time was a 48.005, so there's still some time to be found. We'll be live later on as well for qualifying here on JB Motorsports 2 and premiered on JB Motorsports, and as well as all the dual action will be on JB Motorsports 2 and then live action on JB Motorsports of the Daytona 500 race as well. Also coming up, we've got the trucks and Xfinity races as well. Back to the
boys. It was an interesting 50 minutes of practice. A few drivers had some difficulties to work on. There was a little bit of drafting, a lot of single car running, but let's turn ahead to 8 p.m. tonight when we qualify for the pole for the Daytona 500.
Well, obviously it's all about the front row, right? The pole of the Great American Race, that's what everybody goes for, but these open cars, Kevin, I cannot wait to see that unfold. Two of them are going to lock themselves in.
Well, you can take a lot of pressure off yourself tonight by getting those two spots, but you can also lock yourself into the front row. And for me, whether it's cursed or not being on the front row, I still want the fastest car to be able to be on offense during the race.
I hear you.
All right, tonight, pole position qualifying for the Daytona 500, plus two of those open cars, 9 of them, 2 of them will lock in positions in the Great American Race tonight, beginning at 8 p.m. here on FS1, single car qualifying. That's going to be fun. All right. Different agendas, 50 minutes of practice. Now get them ready to qualify, and then for the duels, of course, tomorrow night. Fastest lap in this session, Denny Hamlin, Bubba Wallace, Ty Gibbs, 3 Toyotas at the top of the board. Qualifying tonight, 8 p.m. on FS1. Coming up next, the facility.
Well, there we go then, the first one done of the day. We'll be back later on for all of the action here. Definitely not a Bowman Grey. Thanks for your company. We'll see you later on. Bye-bye.